Hello and welcome to the After Dark podcast, the podcast where me, Anthony James, and
Konrad.
That's him, he's the man. We're going to go through Dark episode by episode, and Konrad has actually got a secret, which makes this whole thing have a little bit extra spice to it. What is it, Konrad?
I've never actually seen Dark before, and I'm awfully ashamed.
Fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through episode by episode, hear his thoughts, hear his feelings. You know, I'm sure there'll be a lot of them, and we'll see how he gets on. Before we start, I thought I'd give a bit of an introduction to myself, then maybe Konrad could do the same. Well, my name's Anthony James. I've been making videos on YouTube for about a month now. They seem to be going all right. So I thought we'd start this podcast. I'm a teacher generally, so anything to distract me from that is good. And in terms of TV and films that I usually like, anything really. I love a crime drama. I love science fiction. Basically anything. If you're in the mood for it, I'll watch it. My favorite film of all time may surprise a few of you. We Bought a Zoo.
I can't believe it's still that, to be honest, after all this time.
Yeah, to be honest, yeah, like saying it's my favorite film of all time is actually pushing it a bit, if I'm honest with you. But it's the film that's most perfectly matched to its genre, in my opinion.
Gets the job done. Gets the job done.
But anyway, yeah, I'm willing to be. If you want to comment down below, I'm willing to be to discuss that. I'm sure I'm wrong. Right, Konrad, what about yourself?
Hello. Yes, I'm Konrad. I am English, but please don't hold that against me. Yeah. I like lots of different stuff, to be honest. I watched all range of like movies, from silent stuff through to like really schlocky kind of Italian horror. Like a lot of John Carpenter stuff, which I think is probably going to stand me in good stead for Dark if the first episode is anything to go by, but we'll get into that a bit more later.
Yes.
And yeah, I tend to be very pretentious about cinema, so hopefully,
which is a good contrast to me. Now you might have thought from my Dark videos that I am a bit of a snob about cinema. I'm actually not. I really, really appreciate smart, intelligent things like Dark, and I can really get my teeth into them. But I would sit down and watch a superhero film, sit down and watch a romantic comedy any day of the week as well. I enjoy all types of cinema. I'm not a snob about them. I wouldn't say Konrad's a snob either, but I think he would generally prefer the more intellectual.
Well, I value good writing. I was actually speaking to my partner about this because we were watching the last season of Game of Thrones. We're just finishing it up now.
Oh, geez, okay.
And I was saying, like, I don't mind what genre you fit into. Like, if something's kind of cheesy or, you know, hokey or whatever, I don't mind as long as it's well written. But yeah, it needs to be well written. Otherwise, it kind of loses me.
Yeah, and obviously, where do you come down on the fence in terms of Game of Thrones, in terms of it being... I don't think we need to get into that.
Yeah, we'll alienate half the audience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the books are good. So anyway, yeah, so before we start going in through Dark, we're going to go through it sort of bit by bit. Every episode of our podcast will be an episode of Dark. Konrad has actually already watched the first episode. General thoughts about before we start breaking it down scene by scene?
I thought it was generally good. I don't want to give too much away before we start, but like I enjoyed it, and wow, there was a lot of information in that first episode. I was like, oh, I'll take some leisurely notes as I'm watching this, and then as soon as they started talking, I was like, oh no, this is like an exam condition.
Yeah, like I just put a video up about Galaxy Quest and A Bug's Life, and when I was making notes about those films, I was like, oh, this is so good, laid back, you know, sip of coffee. And then I went down to make notes about the first episode here for this, and it was, having been through the 3 series, I couldn't believe how much there was in that first episode. And on the rewatch, if you do get around to rewatching it one day, I think you'll get even more from it in the second time.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
So before we start, I thought I would also give a warning to the audience who are listening. So the warning is that Konrad is very good at predicting things. That's my warning. So be aware of that. So if Konrad says, oh, I think it's this, and he nails it exactly, then that, unfortunately, is just going to be how we're going to have to run with it. Because in the past, we've sat down to watch films, and he literally would run through start to finish after 5 minutes what's going to happen in the film, and it was always dead on. So if he says something in this episode or in any episode that comes across as he knows what he already knows what happens in the show. He doesn't. He doesn't know any spoilers, but he could just guess it all. Do I think he's going to guess the end of season 3 from the start? No, he won't. But could he guess what happens in episode 6 of this series? Yeah, definitely he could. Now, I don't know what to do about that. I think what I'm going to do this first episode is I'm not going to tell him if he's right.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What do you think? Do you like? Should that be a rule?
Like I think so. Because the thing is, like, I think I try not to come across as like a smart ass and like, you know, like, oh, I know what's happening in this plot before anyone else does. But sometimes I can't help myself. But I think I'd rather, even if I get it right, I think I'd rather just wait and have it revealed to me than necessarily.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. Well, that's it sort of then. So I'm not going to at all give any indication that you are correct. I'm also not going to just lie and say you're wrong either, because I've tried that before. There was one time I was watching a show with my mom, and she was like, now my mom is not generally someone who guesses anything in a show. I don't just put that out there. But she did say one time, she goes, I think this is going to happen, because that's my mom's voice. And I said, oh, and then I went, no, you're wrong. It doesn't happen like that. and then later on when it happened, I was actually just lying to her. So I'm not going to lie to you either. I'm not going to lie to you, and you are, and I'm not going to give it away either. I'll just try and sort of move the conversation on without giving any indication.
Yeah, nice.
Another thing is, you might have noticed already, just from this first few minutes, that this is a lot less formal than my general videos on the channel. This is just going to be a chat between two friends. So don't expect the production quality to be as high. You might hear a mic getting bumped. You might hear someone in the background. We're sorry if that happens, but it might happen, just as a warning. Also, another warning about Konrad. If we get to the end of season 3, and that could take us 6 months because it is 26 episodes, and he doesn't like it, that's okay. So obviously we're gambling here because everyone watching this video probably loved the ending. But if he doesn't like the ending, then we just have to live with that. And unfortunately, you know, I'll still call him once a year, but the friendship will be over.
Yeah, I'll be dead to you.
Yeah, you'll be dead to me, but you know, you'll still live a happy life.
Yeah.
Right.
In theory.
Okay, so with that being said, let's get into the episode. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Are you ready? Break it down!
The episode opens with a Albert Einstein quote. The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion.
Yes. So
Do you agree?
I didn't realize there was a correct answer to these questions. Yeah, I mean, it gives an indication, I think, of the like one of the main themes of the show, or what I think are going to be one of the main themes of the show, which is kind of relativity and time travel, tomfoolery, possibly. So that was like what my mind immediately went to when I saw that.
Yeah, and also I know we've already moved to the next section, but I will also say, based on what you just said there's going to be certain things, like, because we are going through it again, we're talking about it every episode. Whenever you normally watch it, I watched it all in like 10 hours. So I didn't get a chance to stop and think between each episode. So I think that you'll actually clock onto things a little earlier, no pun intended, a little earlier than maybe I would have when I was watching it the first time, because I was just binging it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think I'm definitely watching it with a keener eye than I would watch something else, because I know I'm going to be discussing it afterwards. So that's hopefully going to help, although it might also lead to me overanalyzing stuff.
Hopefully for our sake it does.
Yeah, hopefully I make a complete fool of myself.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Right, so after the initial quote from Einstein, then we get a sort of montage where a male voice, is talking about how the view of time is linear, but actually there's a distinction between, we usually view it as a distinction between past and present, future. But apparently nothing is an illusion and everything is connected. And that was a montage across sort of a lot of photos on a wall. I'm not going to say too much, but yeah.
Well, so this was this the scene where there's like what looks like kind of a bunker full of like guns while the guy is speaking, and then there's like pictures on a wall, but they're not laid out sentimentally. They're laid out like I don't know what you call it, like one of those kind of like cork notice boards in a police station where they're like tracking a murderer or something
Yeah.
like that. Like they're all
Like-
connected by string.
Like Charlie Day and It's Always Sunny.
Yeah, exactly. The
Yeah.
Pepe Sylvia like
Yeah.
board.
Yeah,
So yeah, it doesn't seem like I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that the man who's speaking doesn't actually know necessarily all of the people he has photos of on his wall, if it is indeed his wall.
Interesting, yeah. So maybe like so. Obviously, they're trying to create some sort of connections, and obviously it says everything is connected. So it's showing pictures being connected. So there is obviously a lot of symbolism going on there that connects to that. And as you say, the male voice speaking, maybe the owner of that bunker, maybe not.
Yeah.
So moving on, we then get told, now you'll come to know that dates are very important in this show. So whenever the date is shown on screen, I'll let you know about that.
Yeah.
So it then says that it's the 21st of June, 2019.
Yeah.
So just bear that in mind. Try and remember that date.
Yeah.
Not for today, but maybe for 4 months, 4 months in the future. Remember that date, right? Okay, so then the scene comes of probably one of the most iconic openings to a TV show, I think, is an adult male hangs himself
Yes.
in what looks to be sort of a loft art studio sort of thing.
Yep.
Not much to say about that, I'm sure. We'll just continue on. Now, obviously, you come to know throughout the episode who that character is, but we'll mention that in a minute.
Yeah.
It then shows a sort of a close-up of a letter that's you'd assume is his suicide note. And it says, do not open before November 4th at 10:13 p.m.
Yeah.
And we get a little picture of the family as well. That's another thing you probably noticed throughout the show, Konrad, is that there's a lot of focusing on family photographs.
Yeah. It was, and I wonder why it's doing that. Like whether it's because a lot of this episode is kind of that. It's really clever how it's structured. We'll probably get into it more a bit later, but that opening shot of a bunch of interconnected pictures of different people is kind of mirrored in the episode structure, where you'll kind of see a scene with someone in it, and then you'll see them in the next scene, but they'll be interacting with a completely different group of people, and then you'll see like a lot of the time someone from that scene in the next scene, and it kind of creates this web of interconnected people in a really interesting way. It's kind of overwhelming, but it was a really cool way of introducing the characters, I thought.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and I noticed that even more watching it. I think this is probably the 8th time I've watched this first episode in total. And I just, every time I watch it, even the camera cuts to who the next person is, in my head, I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense why that, like, everything is considered, it seems, in this show.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the fact that, yeah, sometimes like they cut from a picture into a person in real life or a person who's in that picture.
Yeah.
And even I've come to realize that they cut to people who are actually connected to them in some other way that you wouldn't realize yet, but
yeah, definitely.
it's pretty cool. Right. So from them, we get, Jonas, who I'm sure I'm going to call Jonas and Jonas.
I've already committed to Jonas. I'm sure, I'm sure it's a soft J, but it's just not going to happen for me, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm going to try my hardest, and I'm probably so you're going to come across as better than me, because I'm going to come across as a fool, because I'm going to try and do the pronunciations, and I'm
Jonas. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to go that far, but I mean, I'll do the soft. Yeah, I'll do the soft J.
Okay.
So Jonas wakes up, sort of looks like he's woken up from a nightmare, and he pops a few pills.
He does, yeah. Possibly related to the man who we will later learn is his father killing himself. Possibly not. I don't know yet.
We then get the opening credits. What did you think of these opening credits?
To be honest, I don't actually really remember the opening credits that much. Like, they didn't stand out to me, which is maybe bad now that you brought them up.
Yeah.
But
You didn't skip them, did you?
No, I didn't skip them. I'm just trying to remember what they actually showed, because I don't remember paying that much attention to them. What was going on in them?
So basically, the opening credits are sort of a number of clips, but it's all mirrored. So it's.
Oh yeah, no, I do remember it now. Yeah, okay. So yeah, whether that's a metaphor or indeed like a literal representation of something, I'm not sure yet, but it's certainly striking.
Yeah, so that's something you'll notice throughout the series. First season, second season, third season, they've all got different opening credits, but they're all in this mirrored style.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool to me. But what you might, obviously you didn't notice when you were watching it this time, but if you look at the credit of the director, Baron Bo Odor, Now, this is what sets Dark a little bit aside from a lot of other TV shows. It's the same director for every episode.
Oh, okay.
So
That's interesting.
Baran Bodor directs every single episode, and him and his wife, Jonsje Fries is his wife. They are the creators of the show. They're the showrunners. She's credited as a writer, even though I'm sure they both had the ideas, and he's the director. So both, it's like sort of a duo. Like they made the show from the conception to the end.
Oh, is it an original screenplay?
It's original, 100% original.
Oh, okay, that's cool. I was wondering actually when I was watching this whether it was based off of something that was adapted or whether it was just written for the show.
Well, I think the history, like we can get into history and stuff in a different episode when we've sort of finished the series or whatever it leads to. But I think that just in a sort of a short cliff note sort of description, I think that they originally were approached by Netflix to create a show that was similar to their film, which is called Who Am I? Which is I haven't actually seen it yet. I am going to watch it. I've been recommended in the comments a lot.
Oh, the Jackie Chan film.
No. I think it's about. I watched the trailer, which I probably shouldn't have done, but I did because I wanted to get an idea of what their other material was. It's about hackers apparently, so I need to watch it. It looks very good, but Netflix wanted them to create like a TV show about hackers in the same vein as Who Am I, and they said no. And then Netflix said to them, "Well, what else have you got?" And then they had nothing, and they went, "Plenty of ideas. We got everything." So then the Netflix said, "Right, okay, we'll hear some other ideas." So I think they were working on like a more traditional crime show called Dark, which was set on a real life serial killer.
Okay.
From Holland, I think, but I might be wrong about that. And then they eventually adapted that into a screenplay that they were also writing about what this show is about. So they sort of adapted it from previous works that they were working on. So it is 100%. It is 100% original. We get the title card. It's called Secrets. This episode's called Secrets. So we'll notice some themes about that. Then another date, 4th of November, 2019.
Yeah.
So we're 5 months in the future.
Sure. Yeah.
4.5 months. Okay. Then we get the scene of Hannah and Ulrich.
Yeah. So
obviously
straight away boobs in the series, which is always a good way to get me on board.
Always a plus.
Yeah. And Jonas is also I believe wearing a velvet sweater, which I was into. So there's a running theme throughout this episode of me taking notes about fashion choices, and normally in the positive, but that was one of them. And yeah, Hannah and Ulrich are going at it. Frankly,
they're going at it, and Jonas is being pretty pushy downstairs.
He is. He knows what they're doing. Yeah, and he's a grown man, or he's like 17 or whatever. He should know better than to interrupt mid-coitus, but whatever,
Or does he know what they're doing?
Oh, well, come on.
Secrets.
He knows which side his bread's buttered on.
He wasn't born yesterday.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So they're doing that sort of thing. Ulrich has a great like Han Solo moment where Hannah says, "I love you," and then he says, "You're beautiful."
Yeah. Ulrich, he's an interesting character. I spent most of this episode going back and forth on Ulrich, which we'll probably get into as more about him is revealed. But he seems interesting.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. Whether I would want to hang around with him in real life, I'm not sure. But he's an interesting character.
His moral code seems a little bit wavy, but...
Yeah, exactly. So then we get a shot of the family photograph. Now, this time there's someone torn out of the family photograph.
Oh, my God. This annoyed me so much because I was like, I had to go and rewind, to be honest. Because as soon as I saw someone was ripped out, I was like, I know I saw this in the opening scene where Jonas's dad kills himself. So I had to go back and see who it was.
You actually went back.
Yeah, I went back because I was like, I know who that. I know there's something like that picture was shown whole. So
Who it is. So you're already like detecting this show.
Yeah,
that's great. So clearly that highlights is that there's going to be some sort of what would you call tension between possibly Hannah or possibly Jonas and a different family member. So I'm sure that'll come out. Then we get one of what will become a very iconic sort of image of the show, and that's Jonas riding around on his bike in a yellow coat.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to get into this now, but we're talking about like talking about maybe like the influences we spotted, or like the kind of the things that Dark was potentially influenced by, and like him riding around on his bike in like a yellow Mac definitely had a lot of familiar imagery to me.
Yeah, I think they did that on purpose. It does sort of speak of it and like sort of a lot of
like
a lot of 80s horror.
There's like the one thing that I felt as I was watching through this, like more than anything else, is like I was really into the score, which is like very synthy, very John Carpenter, and it's got that kind of like, although it's obviously probably, well, I assume it's filmed in Germany, but it's obviously set in a German town somewhere. It's got that kind of autumnal Illinois vibe of like Halloween or something like that, and yeah, like you said, the yellow Mac is very it, and it felt to me like it was doing kind of like a Stranger Things thing, but far more subtly than Stranger Things did it. Which is not to like, I liked Stranger Things, it was okay, but it was also like, hey, remember the 80s, remember this, whereas and which kind of got a bit grating after a while, but this feels a lot more subtle about how it's employing that imagery.
Yeah, I agree with you. And in terms of like the sort of throwbacks and nostalgia that they would go for in this show, it is, as you say, a lot more subtle than Stranger Things. And maybe that also comes down to a little bit that it's told through foreign voices to us.
Possibly, yeah. Maybe.
Whereas Stranger Things is Western, the Western world, we're Western English-speaking world. So to us, it was very much like, hey, look.
Remember Stephen King? It's like, yes, I do. Thanks for that.
His 3 episodes reminding you who he was. So, yeah, I agree with you. And also, like, they're sort of making there is something to the yellow color in this show, and you'll notice as you go through, they reuse the yellow color over and over again. So it isn't definitely. It isn't just used here as a callback to those 80s films. It is actually used throughout the film show as well. So you'll notice that as well. Yeah. While Jonas is riding through the forest, we see a power plant.
Yep.
Billowing a load of smoke into the sky.
Don't trust nuclear power.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. It's always bad.
Nuclear power is not good, apparently, in terms of, according to the 80s.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not going to be good. That nuclear power doesn't look like it's very good for the environment. I thought.
No. How is that forest still there? Is my question.
Yeah. So then we get a little shot of Eric Obendorf.
Yep.
Who's he?
He's a fine young man with a lovely head of red hair, and he's gone missing apparently. Yeah,
or has he? Because there's a lot of chat between Charlotte and Ulrich, the 2 police officers, that he goes wandering all the time. So they actually aren't even sure that anything's going to come up there.
Yeah, Ulrich seems very skeptical about the whole thing, to be honest, right up until things happen.
Things happen, which, I'm sure anyone listening to this, we're not going to spoil them, but you're the one we don't want to spoil. But so then Jonas is having some therapy as well with a character who, I'll just say his name, Peter Doppler. You'll come to know him as well. You need to get used to the names, so I'll just tell you the names.
There are a couple I didn't catch, to be honest. Like Peter Doppler and Hannah, I didn't have.
Yeah, so Hannah is Jonas's mom, and Peter is like the therapist guy. Yeah. So they're walking through the woods. Jonas gets very upset, basically because Peter's asking him questions, and Jonas is like, "Oh, it's because my dad's dead. Come on."
Yeah.
Which
seems angsty.
Yeah, he's very angsty, and there's a great joke. There's a great joke later in the episode about his dad being dead, which we'll get around to. We then, because of your detective skills, you probably already know in the next scene we then see an older woman with is it a mole? I'm not sure what you would call it. I think a mole on her lip, and she's sort of looking at the suicide note that
the tree box.
In the tree box. Yeah.
I also recognized her from the remake of Suspiria, which came out 2 years ago. So I was like, that's one of the reasons why I was detecting on her. But so I'm assuming, I don't think it's actually confirmed in this episode, but based on that picture, I assume she was like Jonas's grandmother or his dad's mum, or I assume she's not related to Hannah by blood.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
First moment of me saying,
We'll move on.
we'll move on. There was an amazing an amazing sort of directed scene, which I just absolutely love. Every time I watch it, I just want to watch it again. And it's like this sort of long one-take shot of an introduction to what you'll come to know as the Nielsen family.
Or Ulrich's family.
Ulrich's family, yeah. And
Yeah,
it's sort
great.
of it's sweeping camera actions and going around everyone, and it's unbelievable. Like I don't know how long that would have taken them to do.
Yeah, and it's like got very, very good blocking as well, like very natural kind of movements from Ulrich and his what I assume is his wife and his 3 kids. 3 kids? Yeah, he's got 2 sons and a daughter, right?
Yeah.
I wrote down in my notes here in the Ulrich's house scene, skeleton costume kid is 100% a wizard. So just putting that out there for potential spoilers.
Yeah, he could be good because of his magic trick.
Yeah, he does a magic trick. Like,
yeah,
I don't know where it went.
Yeah, that magic trick.
When he says when is it rather than he says like when did you hide it rather than where did you hide it or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this kid knows something.
Yeah, the question is not where but when. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's it.
Yeah, like, and actually, like, I think I also saw something like of Baron Bodor talking about it, and I think that was just done by visual effects, because every time I watched it, I was like, what?
Yeah.
How did they train this kid to do a magic trick that good?
It's like a young David Blaine.
Yeah, like even Penn and Teller have to be throwing the cups around really quick so you don't see where everything's going.
Yeah.
He just taps the cup with his finger.
Yeah, if he was doing like the look, I'm levitating thing while he's hiding his foot behind his other one, doing the old like
Yeah.
thing, like that I could buy from a 10-year-old or however old he is, but
yeah, no, not just actually using visual effects post-production.
yeah.
That's the real trick. So basically, so I love that scene. It sort of introduces them all. Ulrich comes in with the bread. Luckily he didn't touch the bread, because he didn't wash his hands. So
it was a pre-COVID world when this was made, though. So
no, but I mean, but he didn't wash his hands from where he's just been from.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Well, that we know of. He might have hand sanitizer in his car.
He might. Yeah, he might. Oh, no, he was on a jog.
Maybe, he was. Yeah.
Maybe he carries some in like his hip pocket or something.
Yeah, he's got like a satchel.
Utility belt.
Yeah.
Never go anywhere without my hand sanitizer. You don't know when I need to pick up bread for the family. Yeah. So then Jonas comes to school, and we come to know that Jonas actually hasn't been to school for a few months, and it's November time, so that's a bit strange. And he comes and he meets with a mate, Bartos.
Yeah.
What do you think of Bartos?
I did not like Bartos almost immediately. I'm going to be honest. I straight away took a dislike to this young man.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah.
Comments about French baguettes and all.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, come on, dude. Like, his dad has. Oh, actually, well, I guess maybe we don't know if Bartos knows that his dad killed himself. I can't remember if Bartos actually mentions it or not, but but either way, like,
later on, I think in the forest later on he mentions that his dad's passed away anyway. I don't know if they know he killed himself. I'm sure they do. Yeah.
But yeah, just Bartos' general attitude. He seems like the kind of dopey, like, again, talking about, those throwbacks to like 80s horror movies. He's not like a walking stereotype or a trope or anything, but he has some of those, the elements of like the kind of doofus friend who's just into girls and will hopefully die at some point.
Here's hoping.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Oh god. Yeah. Well, there's also a scene later on. I'm going to sort of go off a bit of the structure at this point, because there's also, while we're talking about Bartos, there's also a scene when they're in class later, and it was just in my head. I was just like, Bartos strikes again, because he just turns around to Jonas and makes a completely inappropriate comment.
I remember thinking about this, and I can't remember what it was he actually said, but it definitely struck me.
He was talking about the character Francisca. He was talking about her black hole.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it was like, God damn, Bartos, it's 2019.
I thought Germany was pretty progressive.
Yeah, I did too, but clearly Bartos is clinging to some of those traditional values.
Yeah. Oh jeez. Right. Then we get a very angry Mr. and Mrs. Obendorf demanding with Ulrich that you find their son.
Yeah.
And then
I just wrote down for what I assumed it was Eric's dad, and I wrote down Eric's dad looks like the kind of guy who dies 2/3 of the way through an episode of the X-Files just as he is about to reveal something important. So, like,
he's got a great look. Like he's a real sort of Timothy Spall look about him.
Yeah, he looks like a trucker or like someone who's just got off like a 20-hour long haul drive. Is wired like to the gums and is just coming to the police station.
Yeah, and what about Ulrich as well? Giving the lovely hug to the mom. You know, he's very conscientious, man, Ulrich.
Yeah, I think I was a little bit too much for me, to be honest. It's like Ulrich, your husband's right there.
His husband's right there. We've already seen what you like, Ulrich.
Yeah, something so disrespectful.
He then puts the hand on the shoulder of the husband as if to say, "It's all right."
Unnecessary.
Yeah, the episode is called Secrets. That wasn't very secret, like.
I thought Ulrich looked a bit like Rutger Hauer as well. I made that note here, which I was into.
Ulrich, I think he looks like Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah, he does have a bit. He looks like an older Mads Mikkelsen, which I think conversely is also what Rutger Hauer looks like. So, so it's all one timeline. Yeah.
So, what did you think about the sort of a strange hooded figure emerging from the cave? Did you notice that?
I did notice it. I don't think I thought too much about it because I figured it would just be it would be revealed at some point fairly soon who it actually was. But I think at that point we had seen I've got in my notes, in fact, after the Peter Doppler scene with Jonas, Spooky Cave, and then after the police station scene, Spooky Cave again. So, I definitely noted that it seems ominous, and it's kind of like it seems like it's going to be a key part of the story. But the figure itself, I was like, that looks like a kid to me, so it doesn't seem too threatening. But we'll see.
I think I also like just as mentioned there, the Spooky Cave. They keep coming back to the Spooky Cave. It really reminds me of in It, you know, the water drain.
The drain, yeah. I think they use a like a little vertigo zoom possibly on it to kind of change the focus and make it look like the bit in Fellowship of the Rings when they're just to go completely off base for a second. Well, where they're say that again.
Are you going to talk about where they're at the table and they look big and small?
Oh no! So the bit where they're crossing the road and Merry and Pippin are making loads of noise, and then Frodo looks down the road and he's like, "Get off the road, you fools!" And it does like the vertigo zoom to make the sort of forested path look crazy and weird. Yeah, and I think they're doing the same kind of thing with the cave here. But it's a great use of like sound and music to make something seem real bad.
Yeah, it's great, and also it just the ominous undertones, like it's just constantly droning there.
Yeah.
So we'll find out what that is one day. So then Bartos was up to his old tricks.
Yeah, classic Bartos.
Yeah, what's he like? Like he actually seems to have, now what I get from the scene, he seems to have sort of stolen Jonas' girl.
Yeah. So I didn't catch her name, but yes, so Ulrich's daughter is Jonas's ex. Is how it struck me in this scene, and she would not stop looking at him as well, which I thought was very uncomfortable.
Well, if you had Bartos' arm around you, you'd be looking at anyone else, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like she's just like, get me out of here.
Yeah,
do whatever it takes.
Yeah, this is help me.
Yeah. God, he sucks.
Yeah. All right. So then we find out, as I said, that Eric, there's no leads to Eric. He's always going off, but they also mentioned that maybe they have tire tracks that they can have a look into.
Yeah.
And maybe Eric's father's truck actually matches the tire tracks that they're looking for.
Yeah. So, but Ulrich seemed very dismissive of the whole idea. I think, actually, no, was it the female police officer who was like, there are like 30,000 tire tracks around here?
Yeah, so, that was Charlotte. Well, I think it was like 30,000 cars in Winden or something like that.
Yeah. So I think it was Ulrich who was like, nothing ever happens in Winden. To which I wrote, stuff definitely happens in Winden.
Yeah. We've seen a lot of it already.
I've seen, I know, like Ulrich gets up to about 90% of it by the looks of things.
But we also see in this scene, actually, it puts a little plot point out there that is very important, got moving forward. And I'm sure you picked up on it. It's that Ulrich also had a brother that disappeared.
Yeah.
So we'll learn more about that, but that's just something to note. It actually puts his whole blasé attitude about kids going missing a bit. It's a bit strange.
Yeah. I mean, the second or third time it happens, it's like, wow,
Yeah. Well,
of course.
I cared when it was my brother. I don't care when it's this ginger fella.
Yeah.
Right. So let me see where to go next. Oh, the next thing I was going to talk about was actually Bartos's comment about Francisca, but we've covered that.
Yeah.
So then we got a new character, Regina.
Oh, this is a great scene. I love this scene.
The one on with the woman on the phone.
Yeah, the hotel owner /
Regina.
Yeah. So I like, as we'll reveal later in the episode, I disliked her a lot by the end of this. But this scene was a really great introduction to a character, because it was just like there's so much information given to you about this character in this scene. Like, you can see there's loads of keys on the wall behind her, so the hotel isn't doing well, and you get a real look into like her personality, and it just contextualizes how she is later in the episode in a really good way. And it's like a 2-minute scene maybe, so it's it's a really, really like snappy way to use your script, I think.
Yeah, and it's all done with one-sided conversation. Like,
yeah, totally.
It's mental. Like, sometimes you watch a show and like someone's on the phone and you can just tell that there's no one on the other side of that phone.
Yeah.
This time, like, I was generally believing that she was having that conversation, and I would obviously put down to, I think she even alludes to it, but I'd put down to the idea that because Eric has gone missing, no one wants to come to Winden for a holiday.
Yeah.
So obviously that probably would be bad for business. Yeah.
No, I think she does explicitly say it. I didn't write it down, but yeah, I think she says something to that effect.
Cool. We get a bit more information about Ulrich's brother who went missing. We find out that he's called Mads.
Yeah, Mads. This is the grandma scene, isn't it?
The grandma, yeah. So this is the grandma of Marta, Magnus, and Mikkel.
Yes.
And Mads is the brother. Lots of M's in that family.
Yeah.
So basically, we also find out that he disappeared 33 years ago.
Yes, yeah. And she mentions a dude with a massive head, which sounded bad, to be honest.
Yeah, she saw someone in the forest or whatever.
Yeah, I saw someone in the forest with a massive head, which I was like, oh, well, that seems fine.
It's probably the Kool-Aid guy.
Why is she just walking around? Yeah, exactly.
Come through the wall.
Pyramid Head from Silent Hill. What's she doing just walking around the forest, this woman in her like late 60s, early 70s?
Looking for chocolate bar wrappers, of course.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, finding random chocolate bar wrappers from the 80s.
You got to, of course. Because that, like, I don't think Raider Bar, or Ryder, they call it over there.
Yeah.
That bar looks very similar to another bar we've seen, hasn't it?
I didn't notice that. Now you've said that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't pick up on it.
Okay, that's my first mistake, guys. Sorry. Sorry.
I don't mind being guided slightly. It's okay. Like there will be stuff I miss, but yeah.
I'm going to try very hard not to do that.
I'm trying to think who else have we seen eating confectionery in this in this show so far? Oh, it's fine. I'll revisit it on my own time. Did
you not see Bartos? Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so we then get a little scene of I know this first episode is a lot of me saying and then, but it's the first episode. It's going to happen. You know what I mean? So I apologize for being repetitive, but it's sort of how we have to do it because there's so many new characters. You know,
you just got to learn new linking words, notwithstanding, and
furthermore,
furthermore, yeah, that'll do.
Furthermore, we get so there's a guy, an old guy, who just keeps saying it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. He's also got a pretty gnarly looking ear.
I didn't notice his ear actually, but like I definitely noticed that he looked a bit messed up, generally speaking. So yeah, he doesn't look like he's in a good way. This guy. Yeah.
So you'll notice in maybe future episodes, it's very clear to see he has an ear that is very mangled and scarred.
Oh, okay.
So he only has the use of one ear, basically. This character.
Okay, that's interesting. I'll try to remember to come back to that once we finish talking about this, because that I maybe have a theory.
Okay, cool. We'll get some theories from you at the end as well.
Yeah.
Now, in a strange, weird decision, the first time I watched this show, I was like, "What are they doing?" So maybe you had this feeling too. We actually see Eric.
No, I was super into this because I was like, if this is going to be like kind of a missing kid thing, that's fine. I can get on board with that. But the fact that they're just like, yeah, here he is.
Yeah. No, I know.
And then he's in a room listening to an absolute jam in "You Spin Me Right Round," and the sort of wide angle shot of him in a room that is clearly made to look like it's the 1980s, but with a very clearly like heavily locked door in the background. It's okay, something's going on.
Well, maybe this is just his crack den or something. You know, like we find out later that he is a drug dealer of sorts.
Yeah, but I think that door looks like it locks from the outside to me. So
okay. So
yeah,
there is some foul play going on. Yeah, I have to say I did like this as well. Like, let me get that straight. I did like that they showed it to us, but my brain, which was sort of in the mode of figuring out who took the kid.
Yeah.
When we were showed the kid, it was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing.
When it first went to that scene, actually, my first thought was like, oh, this is like a flashback, clearly, because we don't know what happened to him. But then when I was like, all right, no, this is set in 2019, and this is clearly not a flashback because this kid is not old enough to be however old he's supposed to be in 2019 when he was this old in the 80s.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'm also just a sucker for anything that's like openly kind of well, very, very 80s in terms of the music and the style it's employing. I was very into it. Yeah,
that's cool. But not too much, like Stranger Things. So basically, there's a line. So they come up with a plan.
Yeah, this plan is terrible.
Of course it was Bartos's plan.
Yeah, let's go to the caves for weed, bro.
Yeah, when do we go? Middle of the night.
Can we not just buy weed like normal people? Like, why do you have to go into a cave, you weirdo Bartos?
Yeah, and the thing is as well, Jonas gives him an out. Jonas goes, what are you going to do? Sell it? But like that would be normal. Like it's like okay, he wants to get it to profit. Okay, he wants to sell it. It's like no. He's like, no, we'll smoke it ourselves. It's like, what? You're going to go out to the middle of the forest just to pick up a bag of drugs?
Yeah. It's just Bartos. Like, who would ever be his friend?
Yeah, but to be honest with you, it does sound like a teenager's idea.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, it's very true to some of the ideas I had when I was a teenager. So, you know, I once got stuck on top of a shed because I climbed onto it, but we had to climb over a barbed wire fence to get to it. And I didn't trust myself to climb down again without cutting myself. So I got stuck on a shed for about an hour. So you know.
You're going up there to get drugs?
No, I was just going up there to stand on top of a shed, but you know, I'm just saying,
much more innocent than Bartos, then.
You know, let he is without sin cast the first stone.
That does sound like fun, actually. I'll go find a shed to climb on. Yeah. So basically, then we get Katerina, who is the name of the school principal, who's Ulrich's wife.
Yeah.
She finds a hair on his jumper.
Yeah, and frankly, I can't imagine it's the first time.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Ulrich and Bartos, definitely some of the antagonists of this show. Even though Ulrich is the one who's meant to be looking for the kids.
Yeah.
Okay, just a little tidbit. I'm going to sort of speed through a lot of the rest here, but a little tidbit that you maybe had, I'm sure you picked up, was that the guy who is working in the power plant, who's getting a massage from Hannah.
Yeah.
He mentions that he came to Winden 33 years ago.
Yes, yeah, I did clock that. I'm not sure what. Well, we know Mads disappeared 33 years ago, or I assume that's what happened 33 years ago. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I haven't really got any ideas about how that ties into the nuclear plant or this character.
Yeah, neither do I. Just kidding. So he actually also, just to let you know, his name's Alexander. Okay, so just so you know, I don't know.
I will apologize in advance for the number of times I'm going to forget all these names, but I will do my best to. Yeah,
remember. and it is going to be a bit harder for him in general because he's not binging the show. So we'll just have to put up with him. I'll give him. I'll send him like I'll send him like a PowerPoint maybe with all the faces and names.
A cheat sheet.
He can study it. He can study it.
Send me a little web showing all their relationships to one another.
Oh, actually, we'll talk about this later, but there is actually a website that you can go on with the Netflix created a website where you can go on and you can actually click on season 1, episode 1, and it shows you the characters and the
okay.
So you only click where you're up to, and then it'll
I
show
mean,
you a view with no spoilers. You know what I mean? So,
Okay, I'll check that out because that would probably help.
yeah, I'll link that to you after. And then we get a great scene where Hannah comes into the school and Katerina gives her a big hug.
Yeah, this was like I don't know. There was tension here, and I don't know if it was tension that I was bringing to the scene or whether the characters had tension between them.
Yeah, their relationship is an interesting one, which obviously will develop throughout the series. But I think that's probably a good starting point. If you feel tension there, I maybe didn't get it from the scene because maybe you were bringing it, but it's not going to be unuseful for you going forward in terms of their relationship. We get extra detail into Marta and Jonas's sort of past. Marta mentions last summer. Ooh. And then they have a little chat and they actually talk about deja vu and a glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah, so I wrote down someone mentioning deja vu is like 100% foreshadowing for something. Like, you don't mention a bunch of like time relativity stuff at the beginning of your episode and then start talking about deja vu flippantly. So yeah, and again, Bartos just sucks in this scene.
Bartos
keep hammering that home.
Yeah, keep hammering that home. Yeah. I'm a willing recipient of that. But then comes how I greet everyone these days is Mikkel, ultimate fist bump.
I don't remember him doing that. I didn't.
Yeah.
What did he do?
He had to come with them to the caves because there was no
the babysitter.
There's no babysitter, yeah. So he comes up and goes ultimate fist bump to Jonas, and Jonas fist bumps him. It's nothing more serious than that.
Oh, okay, fine. Like, I mean, Mikkel, for what I saw of him, seemed pretty cool. I was into his skeleton outfit, so
yeah, any kid who's dressed like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. He's got his head screwed on straight.
Yeah, so they're off to the caves to get some drugs. I'm going to speed through a bit of this now. The parents are having a meeting. Regina's not happy. Obviously, she's got some ulterior motives. She wants the hotel opened up.
Yeah, this is where I was like, all right, lady. Like, I literally wrote, okay, hotel lady. We all know you're struggling, but it's like you haven't even seen Jaws here. She's like demanding the beaches reopen. It's like, no, there's a shark out there. God damn it.
Yeah, it's not unlike currently in the world today. So, she's just going mad about wanting this hotel opened. And then she also throws in, which actually was not very becoming of her, worry about your own personal problems. She said that to Katerina.
Yeah, meow.
And Katerina was like, no idea what you're talking about. But Katerina, you do, because you found the hair on the jumper.
Yeah, but
secrets.
Regina, she doesn't know that Regina knows, maybe. Or maybe they're all just living in denial.
Yeah, maybe. Something's going on, we know that. But basically, one ear man, Helga is his name, storms into the assembly hall, and he's saying, it's going to happen again, it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
Do you think he knows something?
I suspect this man may have some kind of knowledge of something that I'm not aware of yet.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's just talking about Germany winning the World Cup or something. He's just a really big football fan.
It's going to happen again. It's coming home.
2020's our year.
Yeah.
He's just getting ahead of it.
Yeah, he's getting ahead of it. So then we get sort of a whole montagey sort of them going to the caves. Ulrich and Hannah start kissing. I thought to myself, like, whenever they were walking to the caves, I was just like, what on earth are you doing? Like, see when they started telling stories about Eric being missing while walking in the pitch black forest?
It was just like, what do you do? Well, I mean, it's very, like, this bit was where I was really like, okay, this is, like, definitely pulling from some 80s horror tropes here. Like, the idea of, like, oh, in a scary forest, and, like, better tell some scary stories, and walking along the railway tracks, and then, they've got flashlights and everything, and it was super cool. I really liked the imagery, but it was also, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Go buy some weed.
Like, and then whenever the moment when they get there, like, and I'm gonna go back on a few details in a minute, but when they get there and then the huge noise comes from the cave, and they all start running, I was like, I would have been running like that as soon as you started talking about Eric being missing.
Yeah, I would have run away from this friendship circle the moment you suggested going to a spooky cave at night. Yeah,
and then you got like one of the two moments of real levity, or there's more than that, but the two real standout moments of levity in this episode were whenever Bartos said the thing about the baguettes, and also Jonas here in the forest walking says something about his dad. My dad always used to say this, And instead of the rest of the characters being like, oh, yeah, he did, and being really nice to him, they just stare at him as if he's got 3 heads.
Yeah.
And then
Is that where he says, like, he's
Dead
talking about,
dad.
like, moral relativism, like saying, oh, good and
Yeah.
evil are just a matter of perspective or something, and everyone just stares at him.
Yeah, and then he just goes, dead dad, bad subject. I was like, no, you brought up moral relativism while walking through the forest. That's why they're looking at you like that, Jonas.
Yeah. Read the room, Jonas.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, then Bartos strikes again. Francisca comes out. She gets the drugs. He
just shoves her down. I couldn't believe this.
Yeah, he just shoves her down.
Strike 3 for Bartos.
Yeah, he's out. But yeah, she shoves her to the ground, and then obviously speaks. I'm going to talk about something in this scene actually later on when I get to a different segment. But there's something in the scene which I've always loved, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, he throws her down to the ground. He's all smug about it too. And then,
it's like, nice job, dude.
He's not even going to sell the drugs. He's just shoving girls down to get high. That's terrible. Yeah. So basically, then they run away. Jonas runs away with Mikkel. He loses Mikkel somewhere. All of a sudden, Mikkel's gone missing.
Yeah.
And then we get he sees his father covered in oil of some sort.
Oil. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything about that or?
No, I mean, it was just super creepy. Like it's yeah, I have ideas in my head about why he might be seeing his dad, to do with like the theme of time and how it works, but it would all just be shots in the dark at the moment. I think I'm almost certain there's going to be like some kind of ability to either see the past or interact with the past in certain ways in this show, just based on how it's setting itself up. But yeah, I don't know how or why.
Okay, cool. So then the siblings of the year arrive back on the bridge.
Yeah.
Without their younger brother. And then they're like, oh, God. And they go back to try and get him. He's gone. So all of the police come in then to get him, to sort of look for him. You also then get a nice little sort of scene where all of the parents, you then see who matches up with who in a way.
Yeah. So I was, this is a good example of my detective work backfiring here, because when they all got a message at the same time, I was like, oh, who's this mysterious third party that's messaging all these people at the same, at the same time? And then I took a step back from it and I was like, oh, it's probably just their kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they're all just sending text messages independently of each other.
Well, what I thought in that moment as well, it could just be all the kids, probably was. But I also thought, like, I've got texts from the government before about certain things. Sometimes they send out a mass text, you know. Maybe,
that's what I thought had happened.
Yeah, maybe they just said another child has gone missing. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's Germany, man. Who knows? And then and then Peter Doppler is on the phone we find out that his wife is actually Charlotte, the police officer.
Yeah.
So the therapist is married to the police officer. He's acting real sketchy here.
Yeah, like what I was like, okay, there must be some significance to the what I assume is a Bible verse that he's recanting. I don't know where it actually comes from, but
that is the I can't remember the actual name of the prayer, but I've talked about it in one of my videos before. That's the prayer that they use in like Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh, okay.
And other addiction 12-step programs.
Okay, because it just seemed like, okay, what can you change? What can't you change? Like, why is this relevant to what the information you've just learned? Yeah, seems sketchy as hell.
Yeah, he was very, very strange. So we'll find out more about that. Okay, just to end off then the episode, there's 2 more things. The first thing is that they find a body in the woods.
Yeah.
And
which is not Mikkel.
Which is not Mikkel. It's not Mikkel.
Or Mikkel, rather. Yeah, I know. I called it fairly early on this. I was like, that's not what Mikkel was wearing. And yeah, sure enough.
Yeah, sure enough it wasn't. And he had like all scars around, cuts around his eyes and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the last thing we see in the episode is actually Eric.
Yeah.
With a different 80s style song. It's actually a German song this time. I'm not sure what you call the song, but I absolutely love this song.
It's the guys who did, I think it's the guys who did 99 Red Balloons, but I can't remember the name of the band.
Oh, yeah.
Who did it. But yeah, that is a German song.
Yeah, and then, so then Eric has a big apparatus closed over his eyes, and then that's the end of the episode.
and he has some sweet high tops on as well. I feel like it's important to
Yeah, it's
important to
note.
mention that.
Konrad's Roundup.
So I enjoyed it. I thought like tonally it was right up my street. I love a bit of synthwave, and I love stuff that's like referential of kind of like late 70s and 80s horror movies, because that's a kind of subgenre that I really enjoy. But I like that it's kind of, it feels like its own thing as well. Like it's spooky in places, but there's a lot of kind of inter-character, or there feels like there's a lot of fodder for like inter-character drama as well. So it's not just going to be like it's not just going to be like a I don't know, like I guess Stranger Things is an example to go back to again, where there's not that much to kind of there's some character work in that, to be fair, but it is sacrificed on the altar of being referential sometimes, which doesn't feel like this is going to do. I felt like I had a bit of Lost in it as well, to me.
Actually, yes, and that's a good comparison. The creators themselves love Lost, but they fully understand that Lost didn't have a fully satisfying ending for a lot of people.
Well, I never actually saw the ending of Lost, to be fair. So
so it lost you anyway. But no pun intended. But that's the first episode in the bag.
Yep, I'm looking forward to the next one.
Now, the IMDb rating for this episode is 8.3.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
I think that's about right. I think it's not like the best pilot or opening episode for a TV series I've ever seen, but it's definitely like there's a lot of threads there, a lot of hooks that it's throwing out, which makes it quite overwhelming to follow. But I think that's true of a lot of TV series when you first start watching them. But I think in terms of like pacing and writing and generally like how it's presented, I think it deserves that.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I do believe as well that I have seen like Dark. I'm gonna cards on the table. Dark is my favorite TV show of all time.
Yeah.
Having said that, I would maybe agree that I have seen a stronger pilot. I've seen a stronger first episode in other shows.
Yeah, I mean, I think like having watched it quite recently, I still maintain I think Game of Thrones has one of the strongest opening episodes of any show I've ever seen. But this is not far behind that. I think the language barrier, not that I have a problem with watching foreign language stuff, but I think the language barrier plus the amount of information you're getting hit with can make it slightly overwhelming, but that's not really the fault of the show. It's just kind of the nature of first episodes.
Yeah, and it's the fact of what they're trying to do with it as well.
What the dub?
I actually decided that I was going to try and do something for the first time as well, while Konrad is looking through, watching the show for the first time, I wanted to do something for the first time. So what I'm doing is actually, I've dipped my toes into the dubbed version of the show a couple of times. Just dipped my toes in. You know, I didn't really like the feeling. Too cold for me.
Yeah.
But I decided that I would actually watch the show completely dubbed. So I'm experiencing that for the first time. So every episode I'm going to be sort of pointing out one moment of the dub which I thought was funny or which I thought didn't really hit the mark. And that part of this episode, the first episode's part for me was the bit where Bartos says jackpot. Right? So whenever he takes the drugs, pushes Francisco to the ground.
Yeah.
In the German one, a German sort of audio version, Bartos, the real slimy creep that he is, goes, jackpot. Right? And it really solidified the character to me. I loved it. But in the dub, it just goes, jackpot.
That's great.
And it was just, I was like, do they make the actors watch the show?
Yeah.
Like
they just got a generic line read.
Jackpot, you know? And it was like, it took me out of it completely. I will say, though, that I was interested to find out while watching the dub. I did get used to it very quickly. It's very abrasive to begin with because obviously they're all just in a studio and you don't have the same sort of reverb and the audio quality as you would in where they are. It's all the same sort of speaking into a microphone type of sound, but you do get used to it. And it just makes me glad that I didn't do that the first time round, because I think you get so much more from the actual subbed version because you just have so much more in the performance, so much more in, you know, I don't. Also, there is the fact that who are the actors doing dubs? The actors who couldn't get jobs in real shows.
Wow, take that, voice actors.
Like, let's be honest. Although I generally like voice actors, but come on.
That's like the only thing I'll watch dubbed by choice is certain anime, because I love bad voice acting in anime. But yeah, generally speaking, subs for something like this I think are important, because you need to actually get the writer's original intent in the words.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
A stranger from the outside.
So we have actually 2 questions for Konrad this episode. The first one comes from MDDM, and they ask, do you have any thoughts about how... Now, I've rephrased this slightly because I want it to be as little as spoilery as possible. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
But they say the gist of what they said was, do you have any thoughts about how the nuclear power plant would play a part in the show going forward?
Well, given that it feels like it's pulling from... like 80s horror tropes, I think there's like nuclear power is obviously not to be trusted in in the 80s, because it creates mutants and superheroes and stuff like that. But my gut feeling is that they're gonna zig where I'm zagging on this, and it's gonna be a cover for something else.
Okay.
That's my initial suspicion, because I think it would be too obvious for it to be like, I don't know, radiation creates mutants, whatever.
Cool. Okay. I love that your head's at mutants.
yeah, I mean, there's no reason why it would be mutants in this. Like,
you had that thought
no
and just sticking to it. Yeah.
You know, this is Dark is actually an X-Men property.
Well, the first mutant was actually a man who could sweat oil.
Yeah, it's the worst power.
Yeah.
Children of the atom.
So, second question. Media number 1 says, now this isn't really a question, it's more of a says, and you can build off this. I wonder what he assumes just from the first episode where the series will lead to or how it will end. Now, this gave me an idea that we could actually take your sort of prediction and it'll be completely off the top of your head. It'll have no
like time capsule this.
Yeah, we'll time capsule it, and then we'll come back to it in the last episode, and we'll listen to it, and we'll think like, you know, were you in any way right? So media number 1 wants to know, how do you think the show is going to end?
So the final episode of season 3, where do I think we are at that episode?
Yeah, like what do you think it's going to lead to?
I think it's going to turn into like a time cop show. That's my call. They're gonna discover some way to travel through time, and they're gonna police time. But it's gonna be a gang of kids that do it.
A gang of kids who go through and
kids. And it's kind of like a Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego thing, except rather than going to different countries to stop crimes, they're going to different periods in time. So like one week they're in King Arthur's time, and then the next week they're in the future or whatever.
And do they actually have physical handcuffs, or are they some sort of futuristic-y...
Yeah, they have like futuristic, like gravity handcuffs.
Gravity handcuffs.
They have lasers between them.
That's fantastic. I would watch that show. Well, actually, we'll find out. Are we watching?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping Dark is that show.
Yeah. That's great. Oh, fantastic. Right, media number 1.
I should probably say, if you really want a serious answer, I think there will be time travel involved. I feel like there has to be. I think it'll probably be someone is futzing with time in some nefarious way, and the kids are the ones who figure it out and need to band together to stop it somehow. But I can't really say anything more specific than that. I will say, don't you say anything after I say this, because I don't want to like sort of lead your thoughts in any way, but I will say this. I find it really, really interesting. And actually, I never even thought you would go this way. The fact that you're gravitating towards the kids banding together to solve it, because that's such an 80s trope. Yeah, I mean, it just feels like the kids are the main characters to me. I could be completely wrong, but the kid, like, because it has that feeling of like, okay, all the adults in this kind of suck. So, and the kids are more vulnerable, and some of the kids suck, aka Bartos. But like the kids, you know, it's always the kids who have to fix stuff because the adults don't believe stuff is actually happening or whatever. Like Ulrich was skeptical that anything was going wrong, and the cops are always useless in 80s horrors. So yeah, I think the kids are going to be the main characters.
Okay, cool. All right, so that's the first episode, and so subscribe to the channel if you want to catch the next one. I'm sure you will, because that was, let's be honest, that was fantastic. So episode 2 next week. I can't remember what it's called. We'll find out where these crazy characters go. So make sure you subscribe. If you want to leave a comment about anything you want me to ask Konrad. Apart from that, though, I think we're done here, Konrad.
Yeah. Well, I haven't got a sign off, so goodbye.
That could be our sign off.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Yeah, we're waving at the camera.
I'm waving. Yeah.
Even though we're not actually have a camera, but we're waving. Goodbye.
Yep.